5 to 7 metre sea rise due to the loss of Greenland ice into the oceans. It also means that the permafrost will be under intense heating pressure, and within probably a matter of decades, the permafrost, that's 500 billion tonnes of carbon, will release that treasure trove of organic matter into the atmosphere, and will put more greenhouse gases in the air than we have already through fossil fuels. That is what we've unleashed. This means that we are truly in a position of crisis. We do not have time for a long resolution of this question. We have to get that Arctic ice back. It will go in the next 5 years because the inertia in our political and economic systems is so strong, but we have to get that Arctic ice back. And the only way we can get it back is we have to stop adding to the heating because we're too hot already. And that means we must simply go for zero emissions in terms of fossil fuel use. We cannot afford any new emissions, we cannot afford any old emissions from existing plants. We also have an excess in the atmosphere of 200 billion tonnes of carbon, which is why we're already too hot. And we have to take that out of the air. And that is an absolutely staggering thing to have to do. But it was a staggering thing to put it there in the first place, and we managed to pull that off. So taking it out again is just another few years' worth of work. So these are big things, and they have to be done very quickly because we cannot afford to have the Arctic ice missing from all, well, we can't afford to have it missing at all. The last time we faced the level of threat that we face now, 6 billion people plus around the world and the 20 million species on the planet, the last time that there was that level of threat to humans was in the Second World War. And in the space of less than 10 years, people transformed their economies and they did what had to be done. Not very pleasant, some of the aspects of it, I must say, but they managed to bring the world back to a safe state for most people. The last time that the living creatures on this planet faced the same threat was 34 million years ago. So we are now a geological force, humans are a geological force, and we owe it to the 6+ billion people around the world for their happiness and safety, and we owe it to the 20 million species on the planet to do something fairly active about it. That's why we need to go out of business as usual. We simply cannot afford to keep acting the way we are. So what does that mean? And I think being where we are now brings some key questions to our minds. I think that we need to look for new leadership amongst ourselves. And this new leadership will come from people who have been leaders up to date. And it will come from people who have never been leaders before. But the thing is that out of ourselves, I think we need to bring new leadership from within ourselves. And we need more than just leadership from a few. We need leadership from the 5 million people who live in Victoria. This task is so large, so complex, that we simply cannot just simply delegate it to 1 or 2 people, 10, 20 or 1,000 or whatever. We have to actually delegate it to ourselves, each of the 5 million of us that live in Victoria. And that's why we can and do need leadership from literally every single person in our entire community. What sort of leadership do we need? I think we need leadership that provides us with 2 things. One is courage, and drawing on an expression of that by Nelson Mandela. We need courage that is not just a case of ignoring fear or not being fearful. We need the courage to inspire ourselves and also everybody else to be able to rise above that fear and to take the effective action. I think that the other thing we need to do is we need to have the courage to actually fully solve problems. Our society is used to trade-off. We're used to half doing things or quarter doing things. If we can tick the box, then we've done the job. But you cannot negotiate with physics, and the Arctic ice has got to be restored in actuality. And the only way to do that is by making the physical changes necessary. Now, what I'd like to do, sometimes people feel that this question draws people down, makes them feel despondent, saps their enthusiasm and their courage. But I think we actually do have, I really truly believe that we in fact can solve this problem, although I think we have very, very few years in which to do it. But I want to sort of offer you a vision of possibility. There are 5 million people in Victoria. And we live in a networked world. And if 5 million people in our community here were to truly take this issue on and actually solve it, to create a zero emissions economy in 10 years, an economy which is able to draw down 200 billion tonnes of carbon around the world over a period of decades, if we were able to do that, not only would we actually set ripples in the body politic in society around the world, in our networked society, our globalised society, but we would actually have done the hard work of how you do this practically. You might have noticed whenever there's an issue comes up, people say, oh, well, how did somebody else solve it? Now we're facing an unprecedented problem. There is nobody else to turn to except for our own inner resources. And so what we have to do is simply set out and decide to do this. And then when we have done it, we will have created the case study that everybody else can copy and do it hopefully better than we have. Anyway, I think that's enough. But 5 million Victorians could actually help save the world.